Welcome to Tactical Talk. This is Zain Khan. Today, the topic of our show is Pakistan's relationship with the West under the leadership of Imran Khan. Today, the guest of our show is Dr. Claude Rakisits, who is a political scientist and associate professor at Deakin University in Melbourne, Australia, and also the associate at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Welcome to our show, Dr. Claude Rakisits. This is Zain Khan. It is a pleasure having you on Tactical Talk.
It's a pleasure to be back.
Dr. Claude, let's get to the first question. It all started with Pompeo visiting Islamabad, where he met the military brass, including the Chief of Army Staff, General Bajwa, and also the civilian brass, including the Foreign Minister Qureshi, and the man himself, Imran Khan. How did it go according to your analysis and sources? Did it break the ice between Pakistan and the U.S.?
Thank you very much for that question, Zain. I don't think it went well at all. One of the main reasons for the meeting, according to Pompeo, was to reset the relationship between the United States and Pakistan. Now, it's difficult to imagine that a relationship with such heavy baggage over many, many years would be able to be reset with just one meeting. So I don't think it went that well. Anyway, let's just break this down a bit. There are two reasons why it didn't go well, and the two reasons are format and content. Format, first of all. This was a very short meeting. It was basically what I would call a fuel stop for the Pompeo delegation on its way to what I was perceived as being a more important visit, which was to India. And Pompeo, of course, spent there a couple of days, 2-3 days in India, but only spent 2 hours or so in Pakistan. PR-wise, that's a very bad look, and that's not the way you're going to reset a relationship. That's one thing. The other thing, just a few days before Pompeo's visit to Pakistan, $300 million that was meant to go to Pakistan for counterterrorism operations was withheld because Washington considered that Pakistan hadn't done enough on that front. So that's just not good. And the other problem with the format is that, of course, is the fact that President Trump hadn't bothered to call Prime Minister, or the then Prime Minister-elect Imran Khan, to congratulate him on the big win in becoming Prime Minister of Pakistan, and instead he had Pompeo do this. So already it was a bad start. That's the format. Now the content, I don't think it would have been very good, because most of the content would have been about President Trump's so-called South Asia, Afghanistan strategy, which had been delivered in August of last year. And again, in that whole policy strategy that President Trump delivered, it was all about demanding Pakistan do more, but also more importantly, demanding that it wanted, urging India to do more in Afghanistan. And of course, that's just a ridiculous policy. And personally, for whatever it's worth, personally, I don't think India's got any business to do in Afghanistan. So taking all that into account, I don't think the meeting would have gone very well at all. But the final, I suppose, nail in that meeting, which I don't think went very well, was the fact that the former U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, who is absolutely no friend of Pakistan, incidentally, who has said very nasty things about Pakistan, will now be the front man to deliver this South Asia policy and to try to make it happen. And just to make sure that the message was clear to Pakistan, Ambassador Khalilzad was actually there on the Pompeo delegation. So all in all, I don't think the meeting went very well at all.
Dr. Rakisits, I might slightly disagree with you, but obviously these opinions are based on your analysis and expertise. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Qureshi recently visited the U.S., where he met U.S. President Trump and also other officials at Washington. Do you think Pakistan's current administration had made a better breakthrough in relations with regards to Pakistan and the U.S. than previous governments. In your opinion, do you think that the current government is making better progress as compared to the previous governments regarding Pakistan's relationship with the United States?
Look, it's early days yet, so it's really difficult to tell how the relationship's going to go. I'm not sure if there's actually been the breaking of ice at all. As I said, I know you just mentioned you may have a slight disagreement with me as to how I assessed the Pompeo visit. But again, looking at the long-term relationship with the United States, I mean, it's a bit early to be able to say whether or not there's been a breakthrough. The bottom line is this, is as far as President Trump is concerned, if he could, I suspect he would like to cut off all military and economic aid to Pakistan. Simple as that. And it's not simply picking on Pakistan. He would like to just change the whole international order. Now, he realizes that Pakistan is critical to a resolution of the situation of Afghanistan. So he knows that's not an option to cut off all ties, economic, military, whatever, with Pakistan. So he needs to work with Pakistan. And he knows that Pakistan is completely indispensable. It also knows that Pakistan has a pretty strong trump card, so to speak, where it can actually stop allowing the transport of non-lethal material through Pakistan to go to the Western forces in Afghanistan. It's done that before, and it makes it very costly for the American forces. It's a long process, and it's very slow, and it doesn't work very well for the Americans. So certainly the Americans will not want to break that link. But the other thing to remember, and I just read that this morning, I just heard now about a couple of hours ago, Pakistan's decided to pull out of the anti-piracy combined maritime force, which is basically navies from various countries in the world patrolling in the Western Indian Ocean outside around Oman against piracy. And it's done this apparently because the Americans have decided to stop paying for the fuel for the navies patrolling in that region. So Pakistan just pulled out of this today. So again, that shows that the relationship with the United States and Pakistan are really not doing that well. But I'd like to just take a couple of minutes here to talk about how I see the relationship between Pakistan and the United States going in the long term. In a nutshell, I don't think it's going to go well at all. And the way the Americans see Pakistan, it sees Pakistan not only through the lens of Afghanistan, which is a mistake. There's much more to the relationship. But it also looks at Pakistan and other countries, for that matter, as to where they will be sitting in the big competition that the United States has with China. And it then looks at Pakistan, and it sees that Pakistan over many, many years now, pretty much since 1962, and certainly in the last 10, 15 years, the relationship with Pakistan and China, for very good reasons, has deepened profoundly on all fronts: trade, people to people, economic, military, the whole lot. And so it sees that, and it worries about that. And as a result of that as well, but not solely because of that, the United States has started putting more of its eggs into the Indian basket. Now, by doing this, of course, that certainly does not help the relationship between Pakistan and the United States, because we know the relationship between India and Pakistan is not the best. And incidentally, speaking of India, Foreign Minister Qureshi, when he was just in Washington last week, he actually asked Pompeo, could you assist in kickstarting bilateral talks between Pakistan and India? And the United States said no, not interested. So again, that's a reflection of things not going well between the two countries. The other thing that would worry the Americans a lot, and which will then have an impact, a negative impact, on the relationship between Pakistan and the United States, is of course CPEC and Gwadar. And not so much Gwadar, but also the development of Jiwani, which is 80 kilometers to the west, which is going to be a joint Navy and Air Force base for Pakistan and China. And of course, all this means that China will have a greater geostrategic footprint in that area. And at the end of the day, this would worry, of course, the United States. So that's very, very important to remember all that. And that's why in the long term, I don't see that relationship going very well at all between the United States and Pakistan.
Dr. Rakisits, you shed some light on areas where I wasn't really aware of, and it made me look at this from a different angle. But obviously, we can agree to disagree. Let's get to a very important question. And obviously, I want to add something before I ask that important question, is that, you know, U.S. President Donald Trump says things about everybody, about different countries. You know, recently he's cut aid to Egypt, and, you know, the United States has, you know, decent relationships with Sisi. Trump recently said something about Prince bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, and we all know how important the partnership between Saudi Arabia and the United States is. So, you know, Trump said something about Saudi Arabia recently. We all know about that. It was controversial. But at the end of the day, you know, Saudi Arabia has a very important partnership with the United States. So if we keep, you know, Trump's history in mind, I mean, Trump does say things about countries that he actually doesn't mean. So how can we, you know, how can we take Trump's steps towards Pakistan seriously if we keep in mind how important Pakistan actually is for the United States? So, you know, my opinion, in your opinion, let's get to your opinion. I want to ask your opinion. Do you think we should take Trump's, you know, speeches and what he says seriously, knowing that he does say things which aren't, you know, according to his own foreign policy? Now let's get to the important question. Prime Minister Imran Khan's first ever visit to a foreign country as the Prime Minister was to Saudi Arabia, which is obviously, as I said, very close to, you know, the Trump's administration. Saudi Arabia, you know, agreed on investing on CPEC, and some reports say that they didn't agree on investing on CPEC. They agreed on investing in Gwadar. You know, so that was a big deal. It was a $10 billion deal. Regardless of them investing in CPEC or Gwadar, it's almost the same thing. But they are investing in that area in Pakistan. According to your sources and your analysis, what else did Imran Khan and Prince bin Salman discuss in the recent visit? Also, the IMCTC, which is being commanded by Pakistan's previous Chief of Army Staff, that also adds Pakistan's importance in, you know, the strategic plan of the United States in the Middle East. In your opinion, would the healthy ties between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia also assist Pakistan in building better ties with the United States again? And obviously, regardless of the US, Pakistan, you know, also comment on Pakistan's very strong relations with Saudi Arabia since the beginning of inception of Pakistan and the kingdom. Shed some light on that as well. This is a very long question, but I want you to give and shed some light on my comments and also on this whole scenario.
Yeah, sorry. There's a lot of questions there. But just to answer your question first, your broad question about does Trump mean it? Well, it's difficult to tell. Trump will say, you know, one thing one day and something else another day, and the third thing the third day. So that's difficult to tell. But I do think that in the long term, I think the bottom line is this: he continues to see Pakistan through the lens of Afghanistan, which again is a mistake. I don't need to go into details. I mean, your audience knows all about Pakistan. It's, the sixth largest country, soon to be the fifth, nuclear-powered, 208 million people. It's not some sort of country that one can just push around. And it's not simply, a big Afghanistan. It's a totally different ballgame. And so he realizes this, hopefully. The other thing is, of course, he also there's a whole administration there that will probably tell him as well, how to deal with Pakistan. So what I'm trying to say, whether it's about Pakistan or other countries for that matter, because here in Australia, we also have some issues about how the United States approaches some issues in the Asia-Pacific, Indo-Pacific region. But the fact is, there are a lot of sort of grown-ups in the room in Washington that will make sure that President Trump sort of stays and remains sort of on the right track, so to speak. Now, coming back to Saudi Arabia, I think the fact that that Imran Khan made his first visit to Saudi Arabia is very, very symbolic. It says a lot about the relationship between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. It's a long-standing one that goes way back to days of partition. Okay, Saudi Arabia has been there for a very long time to assist Pakistan, regardless who's been Prime Minister or President of Pakistan. That's a given. Now, it does send several messages to the world, including, and we'll get to that, to the Americans, and also to the region, including, of course, to Iran. Now, one of the reasons, a couple of reasons why, of course, Imran Khan went to Saudi Arabia first is, one, he was personally invited by King Salman of Saudi Arabia. And when you get an invitation from the king, you're hardly going to say no. Second reason is, of course, Pakistan is in deep economic trouble. It needs money and needs a lot of it. Now, it could go to the IMF to get some sort of funding. But the IMF, of course, does impose very strict conditions, and that's why Pakistan and Imran Khan, in this case, probably would prefer to go to either approach Saudi Arabia or even China, because the conditions may be easier. Okay, so that's another reason why he went to Saudi Arabia first. Don't forget, Saudi Arabia has helped Pakistan before, especially after 1998 when sanctions were imposed because of nuclear testing. The Saudis helped with providing subsidized oil exports to Pakistan. Now, you did mention CPEC. Saudi Arabia will be investing something like $10 billion into developing an oil refinery in Qatar. Now, it's still not quite clear, and this seems to be a work in progress, whether or not this Saudi money, and it's a lot of it, is actually directly tied to CPEC, or is it a separate bilateral agreement between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia? My understanding is that this has come a bit of a surprise to the Chinese. And I can tell you that I'm sure that this, and if it is a surprise, I'm sure that this surprise will be discussed at next month's meeting between Imran Khan and President Xi of China when he goes and visits in Beijing, the whole meaning of this decision. Nevertheless, the fact that Saudi Arabia wants to spend $10 billion on an oil refinery, I think is very good news for Pakistan. Very good news. It also sends a very strong message that this development, as well as Imran Khan's visit to Saudi Arabia, that at the end of the day, Pakistan's relationship with Saudi Arabia is not only long-standing, but will remain so and will remain more important than Pakistan's relationship with Iran. This is despite the fact that the first foreign minister come to visit Pakistan after Imran Khan's election was, of course, the foreign minister of Iran. This is despite the fact that they have to work together on Afghanistan to try to find some sort of solution. And despite the fact that they have to make sure that the whole Baluchistan area remains calm, because there are issues there as well. So that relationship between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan is solid, is very solid. And you asked me what they will have discussed at the meeting. Certainly they will have discussed, of course, the IMCTC, which is, of course, is a reflection of how much Saudi Arabia really respects Pakistan and Pakistan's ability in the military sphere by having, of course, a former Chief of Army Staff heading it. They will have also discussed certainly Yemen. Saudi Arabia, unfortunately, a couple of years ago would have been disappointed that Pakistan decided under Prime Minister Sharif not to participate in certainly in kinetic activity in Yemen, and I think that was the right decision. And Saudi Arabia understood that. Now, my understanding is that Pakistan's agreed to provide some sort of training to the Saudi military just recently. So that's good news. So they will have discussed all that as well. But there's certainly no discussion at all, a suggestion that Pakistan is going to be participating in any sort of activity in Yemen. So at the end of the day, the Saudi relationship, the deep Saudi relationship with Pakistan is good news. It's certainly good news for Pakistan. Will it help the relationship with the United States? It's difficult to tell. I'm sure that King Salman, who's quite close to President Trump, he gets along with him, will say good things about Pakistan, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, the relationship between Pakistan and the United States will have to stand on its own merits.
Dr. Rakisits, let's get to the last question. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has always held a celebrity status in the United Kingdom. Britain's celebrities and also the political elite are no strangers to Khan, and also vice versa. Khan is no stranger to them. Would this bring Pakistan and the UK closer as compared to the last governments? And has there been any major breakthroughs after Imran Khan became the Prime Minister? And also the growing ties between Pakistan and the United Kingdom enable Pakistan in having better relations with the West, and in particular the United States. I want your opinion on that.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's look at the UK-Pakistan relationship. Now, as you correctly stated, that relationship is deep and long-standing. It goes way back to, of course, partition 1947. And it's deep on many fronts. It's on historical fronts, on the people-people links, on the economic front, trade front, and also military front. And, of course, let's not forget the cricket front. So that's very important. I mean, the British Pakistanis is the second largest minority ethnic group in Pakistan, in the United Kingdom, with almost 1.2 million, slightly less than British Indians, with 1.4 million. And of course, there are very notable British Pakistanis in the United Kingdom, starting with, of course, the Mayor of London, Zain Khan. So there's a long-term relationship there, many links. Okay, and as you said as well, Imran Khan is no foreigner to Pakistan, to the United Kingdom. He went to Oxford. One of his wives was British. So there are a lot of links there. The other thing, and the proof of the importance of these links is, of course, is that the British Prime Minister's trade envoy to Pakistan, Rahman Chisti, just recently made last month his third visit since being appointed last year, third visit to Pakistan to facilitate even more trade deals and trade exchanges between the two countries. And the relationship between the two countries, especially on the trade front, is very big. It's so big that now the United Kingdom has now replaced China, just recently China, as its second largest export market for Pakistani goods. This is big. Their trade the bilateral trade comes to almost £3 billion. And it's with about 25% in favor of Pakistan. So that's good news for Pakistan. Okay. Also, the other thing to remember is the fact that Pakistan, the United Kingdom, is the third largest source of direct foreign investment in Pakistan. 8% of all foreign direct investment comes from the United Kingdom. So there's a very strong relationship there that can't be downplayed at all. And of course, in July 2015, David Cameron, the then Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, of course, visited as well Pakistan. So there's a very strong relationship there. Now, again, a bit like the relationship Pakistan with Saudi Arabia, will this relationship, Pakistan, good relation with the United Kingdom, will that help relations with other countries, other Western countries? Again, it's difficult to tell. But the one thing that's important to remember, and whether that's with the UK or any other country for that, is the election of Imran Khan. And effectively, or definitely, the breakup, the end of the oligopoly of the Bhutto and Sharif families is big. And that will have sent a very important and positive message to the world that things can be changed if there's a will in Pakistan. And I think this will put goodwill in how countries will look at Pakistan and how to deal with Pakistan, to try to help it and also say, okay, we have a new team now in Pakistan. Let's see if we can help at least on the bilateral level. And at the end of the day, and again, this is important, the fact that cricket is such an important part of the relationship between Pakistan and the United Kingdom, we shouldn't downplay that at all, and that may help very much in that relationship and the relationship with others.
Thank you so much, Dr. Claude Rakisits, for being on Tactical Talk. It's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being with you again.
This was Dr. Claude Rakisits, a political scientist and also the associate professor at Deakin University in Melbourne. He's also the associate at Georgetown University at Washington. We were discussing Pakistan's relationship with the West under Imran Khan's leadership. Until the next episode of Tactical Talk, this is Zain Khan. Take care and goodbye.